I'm George from NBA Hockey.
I'm Jack from Puck Analytics.
I'm Jeff from NHL Analysis.
Holy shit, he's back.
I've returned.
It's been like 2 months. If you guys didn't know, this is Jeff. He is supposed to be hosting this podcast with us, but has better things to do. So
It's been a long couple of weeks, man.
yeah, I feel that. Like I'm just in exam week right now for all my summer courses, and playoffs and stuff. Like it's just whatever. It's busy. Thankfully the Nashville Predators are out though, so you'll have a lot more free time on your hands. Um, this week we're going to be covering the first round of the playoffs more concisely. Last week we kind of touched on the 3 series that were over, but that was mainly a draft episode, so we'll kind of retouch on the 3 that we touched on last week as well as everybody else, and we'll talk about the teams that were eliminated. We'll kind of give a little off-season outlook on them, and kind of what the future holds and the direction they should go in and next steps, etc. And then we'll finish up with overviewing the second round of the playoffs and kind of resetting our bracket from where we had it, because obviously there was a couple teams that we had going pretty far one team that we had going pretty far that lost in the first round. So we'll get into that.
I wonder who that could be.
So yeah, we'll start. Do you guys have a division you guys want to start with? I know I was asked this, and you guys never answered.
Doesn't matter to me, to be honest.
All right, let's start with the Nashville Predators.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew that was gonna happen. I knew it. I knew it. I can rant about this for days. So you're just getting good content out of me.
So Carolina won this series 4-2. This was actually a really entertaining series. I had a ton of fun watching it. There was 3 overtime games, I think, in this. Yeah. But yeah, it was just a really fun overall series. Obviously, Carolina took it in 6 games. So I guess we'll start with Jack. What are your overall thoughts on the series first? We'll get that out of the way.
It was pretty interesting to watch all the overtime games. You got to feel bad for Saros and stuff. I didn't watch every single game, so I don't really know probably as much as Jeff will, so I can let him take it away with this.
Okay, so there are 4 overtime games. My fault.
4,
I forgot
okay.
it was 4 in a row. 2
That's
double
wild.
overtimes and 2 regular overtimes. Yeah, I forgot Game 5 went to overtime too, to be honest. Boy, where do I even start? And it was crazy being in the arena, to have the largest crowd of the first round out of any first round games was awesome. The atmosphere was electric. The chants were going. The fans were awesome for the most part. It was really, really fun to be back there in Bridgestone with all the fans around. It's too bad that 100% capacity couldn't be reached because the Preds couldn't beat the Hurricanes, but you know what? It's okay. I actually had Carolina in 6 as my pre-playoff prediction, and lo and behold, it came true. But yeah, it was really fun for some parts, and then for most parts, it was awful. Not because, I mean, the Preds gave the Canes a run for their money as much as they possibly could, but at the end of the day, the Canes were just a better team, man. Like, their neutral zone attack was incredible. They transitioned really well. They basically taught the Predators how to cycle the puck correctly. Like, it was insane. Like, their time of possession in Game 6 in the third period, the Preds only had, I believe, 41 seconds of possession time in the offensive zone. And, I mean, they just put on a clinic, especially in that last game. It was really crazy. Like, it really just showed the pedigree of the teams that the Preds are competing against, and it only further instilled the notion in my brain that the Preds need to retool and fix everything in the front office and all this other stuff that I think should happen. That is a different topic, but yeah, the series for the most part, it was really fun. I thought it was probably the most entertaining of the first round series, if not. I mean, Florida Tampa was pretty good, which we'll get into that later. But yeah, I mean, the overtime games were great. It was really great to see Matthew Shane on the first line with capable line mates and Johansson and Forsberg. God forbid he doesn't play 10 minutes a night with Brad Richardson and Eric Howla. UC was great, usual. He was awesome, and I love watching him play. He's electric. But yeah, overall, it was a fun series that Predators were just, frankly, they were just outmatched, and it was shown in the predictions. But I mean, they fought till the end as best as they could.
Yeah, I definitely agree. This was one of, if not the most entertaining series, and like it was fairly close. I mean, I think they split the 4 overtime games 2-2. So I mean, that could be your series right there, and obviously it ended up being the deciding factor. But the thing that worries me a little bit, and I guess you can touch on this more, just being closer to the team, but just. It almost feels like this series might be bad for Nashville long term, because it could almost instill the fact that, hey, we almost beat Carolina, and could set up a situation where management feels like, we're close, and they just kind of keep pushing rather than taking that step back that they probably should. And it's series like this that can do that. And we'll talk about a team like Montreal in a bit, but I feel like it's the same kind of idea there, where they kind of retooling the roster is probably the right move, but playing such a good team so close might set up a situation where your ownership and stuff looks at that and is like, hey, next year we're going to be in a pretty well wide open division besides Colorado and possibly Minnesota, where that third seed is basically going to be a battle between like 6 mediocre teams, and Nashville's definitely going to be in the conversation for that third spot, and just that incentive might be there, especially with the way they played this series. But is that something that you think is a possibility? Yes.
Oh, absolutely. It's something that I talked about earlier in the year when they were effectively tanking. It was really bad, and when they kind of started this run, I said, I really don't want the Preds to make the playoffs. And it's not because I don't enjoy playoff hockey or I don't want to see the team in the playoffs. Obviously, I would love to go to full-capacity games and watch the Preds beat the Hurricanes in double overtime twice. Like, it's electric. Like, I don't know anybody or any self-respecting hockey fan that wouldn't want to go watch that. But is that this mindset that the Predators are okay and are going to be just fine is just not true. And no disrespect to any of the players on the current roster now or anything like that. It's just state of the franchise as it is right now is not good enough to win a Stanley Cup. And when people come to grips with that, then the rebuilding can start and we can slowly inch our way towards a Stanley Cup. And this core, while I think it's full of skilled players, is not good enough. And it was clear during the Carolina series that they got beat most of the time. I mean, even in the double overtime games, the Canes dominated most of the possession. Like, it was not really that close. It was the same thing that happened during the regular season when UC Saros went off and he was setting franchise records because the Preds defense was just allowing shot after shot after shot, and with 0 possession time in the offensive zone. So, yeah, I think the fans, this mindset that the Preds are good enough to compete for a Stanley Cup, I think is just not true. I think it's just kind of false hope. And I like David Poile, but he's not the guy. I've acknowledged this before, but him and John Hines are not the guys that are going to lead this team to a Stanley Cup. And a lot of the future is rather unclear because of drafting and all this stuff, and all the stuff that goes into even the expansion draft. But it's time for people to start recognizing that this team is pretty mediocre, and if they don't do it right, then they could end up like the Minnesota Wild, who took decades to get out of mediocrity. It's not going to be fun for any Preds fans to watch their team consistently get beat down in the first round. Like, nobody wants to watch that. So, yeah, I do think it's a problem, and I am a little bit worried that this quote-unquote close series with the Canes was taken to 6 games.
Just looking at kind of the future outlook here for Nashville. Their biggest UFA is probably Granlund, who it's probably most likely doesn't come back, or at least he hits the market first. Ellie Tolvanen's their biggest RFA, which obviously is going to be a priority for them. You can throw Fabro in there as well, and Saros, obviously. But other than that, I mean, they have about $17 million to play with, and guys like Howla and Richardson are kind of the next tier of expiring contracts they have. So it's not like they have any big, like, ticket guys that are going to be leaving this summer. So there's an opportunity for them to have some money to play with, and depending on what they do with that, personally, I think they should almost look to try to take on a contract for somebody to gain an asset. But I feel like that's, like you said, probably unlikely at this point because of the fringe success they had this season. So they could be they're definitely be an interesting team to watch this summer, with that bit of flexibility, and yeah, I mean they're going to be intriguing because I mean Nashville's an interesting market for players too, just to go to. I mean they've seen kind of the atmosphere that the fans have there, and it seems like the players that have been there have had a lot of fun. So it's an intriguing market, and it's really an intriguing direction that they could go in here because, like I said, like in a mediocre Central Division next year, there's an opportunity to compete at least somewhat, and then you get steamrolled by Colorado at some point in the playoffs. But yeah, I mean they're a team I'm intrigued by. I guess at this point.
I would just like them to pick a direction. Like, if you're going to rebuild. I mean, Poyle this last offseason said, we're going to start with a youth movement, we're going to bring guys up, and he went out and signed Eric Howla and Brad Richardson. Like, I mean, if he wants to go balls to the wall for a cup, go do it. Like, tell the fans or tell somebody that can relay to the fans that this is what we're doing, this is the path we're sticking on, and we're going to enforce this. We're going to seriously pursue this goal. Like, if you're going to rebuild, just sell everybody, get draft picks, and then just let the year play out. Let John Hines' contract play out, and then bring up Carl Taylor to coach, and you're good. Like, that's the one thing that really bothers me is that not only does the fan perception of the team change when they go 6 games with Carolina, but the front office's perception of the team changes when they go 6 with Carolina, and that's really what worries me is because they didn't pick a direction to begin with. Now it looks like they're going to go in the direction that could possibly hurt the franchise years down the road. So yeah, that's my big gripe with them right now.
Yeah. The next series we can touch on here is also in that same division, with Tampa Bay and Florida, which again was one of the most entertaining series in this playoffs. I will finally admit that my Tampa in 4 prediction was slightly off. That's okay, it happens. Yeah, Tampa ended up winning the series in 6. Sergei Bobrovsky sold the bag pretty well all series, and I mean Florida, what a wild roster like they're gonna have in the next couple of years here with all the goaltending controversy and money they got tied up in there. Spencer Knight came in, looked solid in the limited time he had, but yeah, I guess we can touch on thoughts on this series in general first.
Well, the series was amazing to watch. The fans, and especially just Florida, they were just so much fun to see, like going crazy in the stands and stuff. There's tons of hits. It was very like aggressive playoff hockey, like many people want. The only thing with Florida is like they could not get goaltending for their life. I felt like they went toe to toe with Tampa the entire series. Bobrovsky was probably the worst goalie that I've seen in so long. It was just embarrassing for them.
Spencer Knight's an absolute stud, and I love him. Just gonna throw that out there. Like, seriously, I love the kid so much. He's such a good goalie, and it's really a shame that Sergei Bobrovsky sucks so much. He said he gave up the bag. Would you say he fumbled the bag or gave up
He
the
sold
bag?
the bag.
Sold the bag while
Yeah.
also getting the bag.
Yeah.
So,
For
take
another
that.
6 years?
God, yeah.
I'll never
It's another
understand that.
excellent
Like,
example.
how do you sign a goalie for 7 years and then draft one like 15th overall the same offseason? Like, what the hell? Like,
Just another example of why you should not sign goalies long term. But that's besides the point.
sorry, it's four more. 1, 2, 3, 5 more years. This was the 6th year.
God, I was just
5 more years. Yeah, it's wild.
yeah, it's ridiculous. And like it was unreal. Barkov looked kind of quiet to me. It was I don't know, when I was watching, I didn't really notice him as much as I probably should have or would have liked to. Huberdeau was pretty good. I liked him. I liked his play a lot. I mean, pretty sure he was leading the playoffs in points in the short span that they were in the playoffs. Verhaeghe looked also quiet, but not as quiet as Barkov did. And this might not. I mean, the stats might not show what I'm saying to be correct. I'm just pointing out what I saw when I watched. Barkov was a little bit quiet. Same with Verhaeghe, but Verhaeghe looked a little bit more like. Braden Point is an absolute monster.
Oh,
And
God, yeah.
he's a top 5 center, and I'm sorry to those who disagree. Please watch the playoffs. If you don't think he's top 5, he's at least top 7.
Watch the playoffs last year too. Like he's been unreal.
Yeah,
both
I
around.
honestly, the playoffs are like the bed of recency bias,
Oh,
and
yeah.
for whatever reason, Braden Point keeps not getting credit for what he's done. Like I've said Braden Point's a top 5 to 6 center, and even after last year's playoffs, where he probably should have won the Conn Smythe, people were like, "No, he's not. What are you talking about? He's not even top 10." Like, what?
Yeah,
Like, how? It's ridiculous. It's crazy to me that people don't give Braden Point the respect that he deserves. He's awesome. He's so fun to watch. His skating is awesome. He's just incredible. He thinks the game really well too. It's not like he's just going out there and blowing speed off and just throwing the puck around, but he actually thinks the game at a high level. And obviously, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the elephant in the room, Nikita Kucherov. He was fantastic. He played really well. Even when he wasn't putting up points, he was still creating plays and stuff like that. And Vasilevsky, obviously, is continuing his Vezina caliber season. He's carried it over. But yeah, Tampa. I mean, I think both teams played pretty well. The one key factor here was goaltending, and it really, really showed how important hot goaltending is during the playoffs.
Absolutely. Yeah, Kucherov and Point have they combined for 7 goals in the 6 games of the series, which I mean that on its own, like disregard everything else in Tampa Bay that they have going for them is like they're a team that's dangerous. I think they're still winning right now too. So in a series they're up 1-0 and already. They look like they're going to be a threat, and we do know that they will play the winner of the Islanders and Bruins. By the way, so in case you guys were wondering about that, it will be the winner of the West versus the North, and then the East versus the Central. But either way, yeah, Tampa Bay looks really good, and they looked really good in Game 1 as well against Carolina. I guess transitioning over to the Panthers. Just looking at their cap-friendly thing right now, just off the top of your head, how many contracts do you think this team has signed after the 2022-23 season, which is 2 years from now?
I'm gonna say something stupid like only 20.
I guess like 4, maybe 5.
They have 2. Sergei
Holy crap.
Bobrovsky and Aaron Ekblad, and that's it. Nobody else is signed past 2022-23.
I guess they have Huberdeau and Barkov up in 2 years.
Yeah. Our Barkov's up in 1. He's got 1 more year after this year, and then he needs a contract. Huberdeau's got 2. Hornquist has 2, and it's kind of cycles through that. It's either 1 or 2, or they're a free agent this year. That's a lot of roster turnover in the next 2 years. Obviously, a lot of those guys are going to come back, but like, wow,
It could be huge, especially with cap space. Like, there's a few guys that
Yeah.
are getting kind of overpaid.
Oh, absolutely. And like if they can manage that money right, they can kind of like as bad as the Bobrovsky contract is, and it is bad, they have enough maneuver room here that they could kind of play around that and almost make it a non-factor maybe until like the final year of it. Like really, like if they have no other long-term contracts period besides Ekblad, and Ekblad's up in 4 years, and Ekblad's still really good. So there's really like there's so much flexibility on this roster, and it's gonna like they're such a fascinating team because I mean Bill Zotto's done such a really good job over the past season, and even like bringing in a guy like Sam Bennett who's fit like really well into this lineup. It would give me confidence as a Panthers fan. Just based on his really recent track record. Obviously, it's a small sample size because it was only 1 year, but to have this much roster flexibility and have a GM that seems to know what he's doing, at least in the small sample, Florida could be really interesting, especially in that division where there's a lot of really good teams in the Atlantic. Florida could easily like kind of separate themselves from that bottom half next season. So, although there's a lot of question marks along with it as well, because there's no guaranteed players sticking around, they're a really fascinating team, especially since it's in Florida, which is a market that interests a lot of players to begin with.
I will say I think this series would have been much different had Aaron Ekblad been
Oh, yeah, I agree.
on the blue line, which it sucks.
As great as Uyghur's been, losing your
really
number one
good
defenseman, it sucks.
Yeah, no, that's all I got to say for Florida. I think that series would have been much different because it did look like the defense was just a step behind most of the time. Uyghur looked great, but there were a couple times like it was just bad. Like I mean, you could tell that the defense was like trying to catch up.
Speaking of goalies who absolutely sold the bag these playoffs, Tristan Jarry was fucking terrible all series, and the Islanders lost to the Penguins. I was so close taking the Islanders in this series, but I just kind of like doubted myself. I'm like, nah, Crosby, Malkin, they'll be fine. And to be fair, Sidney Crosby had a really solid series, but man, Tristan Jarry sucks. Holy shit. It was 6 games, 4-2 for the Islanders, and Penguins Islanders. What do we think?
I thought Pittsburgh was the better team. Every time I watched, they looked like they were dominating most of the chances. It just came back down to goaltending, and the Penguins didn't get any of that from Jarry.
Yeah.
He was terrible. Like we talk about how bad Bobrovsky was, but a few games, Jarry was competing for a worse goaltender than he was in the playoffs. It was terrible to watch. You got to feel for those Penguins fans that have to watch him, and hopefully they can sign someone else because that's not going to do them any good for next season.
He still has another 2 years left on his deal at 3.5.
Well, he gets demoted to backup then because you can't have him as your starter.
It is with great pleasure I hear these words coming out of your mouths. Because I said Tristan Jarry wasn't good in the regular season. I said he wasn't good. And I said Pens fans got mad at me. They got mad at me. And now look where we are. Yeah, Pens fans blaming him for the loss. Rightfully so. Because he's not good. He's just not. And, I mean, it was good to be right. Just gonna say that.
The 3 worst goalies in the playoffs, based on goals saved above expected, were Jordan Binnington was third with a negative 2.9 goals saved above expected. Bobrovsky was second worst with negative 5.58, and Tristan Jarry was the worst goalie in the playoffs with a 6.79 negative goals saved above expected. So almost a full goal and like a half worse than Bobrovsky, who was like 3 full goals worse than the third worst goalie in the league. Tristan Jarry was awful. And
It's terrible.
that's what this came down to was he sucked, and like you said, Pittsburgh was the best team, was the better team pretty much every game. But they got timely saves, and especially in the final game in Game 6, it was embarrassing, just the effort that was put out. And I had a lot of people message me saying if Casey DeSmith was healthy, it would be a different series, and maybe it would be. But I mean, Casey DeSmith didn't set the world on fire at all either this year, although he was a lot better. I just don't know. I mean,
If the Pens got average goaltending that series, they probably would have won.
they win the series, for sure.
They win the series, yeah.
But it just wasn't good. And that was my biggest concern about Pittsburgh all season, was that when this team started winning, and it's one of the reasons why I didn't have them very high on like any of my power rankings, because when they were winning games, all of a sudden Tristan Jarry looked unreal, and he was like a top 10 goalie in goal saved above expected during that span. And then when they started losing again, all of a sudden their goaltending like just started to tank. And it's why I don't genuinely bet on teams that just have streaky goaltending like that, because it doesn't work. And sometimes you can get lucky and run into a hot goaltender, and most times it doesn't, and you fizzle out in the first round. And, for all the stories about Jordan Bennington's winning Stanley Cups, there's, 15 other Andrew Hammonds who just get blown out in the first round and never do anything again. And that's kind of what this feels like a little bit. And, I mean, Pittsburgh has a ton of question marks, man. Like, the Malkin rumors have started up again. The Letang rumors have started up again. I saw a Jake Gensel rumor on Twitter with people saying they should trade him for, like, Matthew Tkachuk. It's just, like, this team is again, just really fascinating. And it'll be, because obviously you're not going to go into a full rebuild with Sidney Crosby on your roster, but like they could see some significant moves this summer. And I think it kind of has to happen, because I think the Penguins' cup window is closed with this core. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about like what the Penguins should do at this point?
I don't know, man. It's really tough because, I mean, I think as long as you have Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, you should probably not go for a rebuild. But at the same time, I don't think selling off a couple pieces for draft picks or prospects would be a bad idea, considering where their prospect pool is relative to the league. No, I not really. They're in that weird like middle ground where like they can still sort of compete for a cup, but it's been constant first round losses. I mean, compared to the Preds just aren't that good. But like the Penguins have at least shown that they're a good team. They just got bested by. They got badly matchup and they lost the series. It's just kind of how the wind blows sometimes. And I don't think I would be surprised to see Ron Hextall, throw a couple guys out the window and get some draft picks or some sort of future for the next couple of years, just because I don't think where this team is at prospect-wise is where they want to be.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like this team needs some kind of future here. But yeah, I mean, they're similar to a team like Montreal, who we'll talk about in a second. They're going to be handicapped by their best player. And as long as Crosby and Malkin are on this roster, you can't rebuild. You have to try and make the playoffs with those guys because of who they are. And what they mean to the team, which is why like a Malkin trade, I don't see happening. As much as it would probably benefit Pittsburgh at this point, I just can't see them doing it. And I think if they're gonna move somebody, Letang's probably the name. If they move somebody of significance, I guess I should say. I really don't see Gensel getting moved either, as much as that's been rumored. I really think, and I mean, I know there's Letang rumors every summer, but that just feels like the name that's most likely to be gone, because they have to do something. They can't just like run this team back next year. Not in that division. Not with the Rangers getting better and Philly probably bouncing back. Like there's just no way that you can just run this group back. But I don't know. I mean, that's why they brought in the new management, right? Like, that's why they brought in, like, Ron Hextall and Brian Burke, was to fix this thing. And those guys aren't going to be passive about it. So, again, it's a really interesting team to watch this summer, which kind of fits the bill of all these teams. I guess another one that's fascinating here is Washington, who lost to Boston, and this is something that we touched on last week with ranks. But we didn't really talk too much about the Capitals themselves. So I guess Jeff, you're the one who wasn't here. So is there anything from this series that you found particularly fascinating with the Caps Bruins?
Caps power play sucks. I don't even know what happened. Yeah, it was a tough series, man. Just looked like some people didn't care. Like that's literally just what it looks like.
Yeah, same thing last year. They didn't give a shit.
Yeah. It just felt like the Bruins were always one step ahead. They just had that counterattack going like every single time the Caps came up the side with the on the rush, and like I mean I had the Bruins winning. It was a relatively quick series, to be honest. I didn't expect it to go that fast, but yeah, it was. I don't know. It was kind of hard to watch. Like, I mean, because I have friends that are Caps fans, and they were they were in agonizing pain watching it. Like, it was awful. I mean, it just like they just seemed like everything was slower for the Caps than it did with the Bruins. And then the goaltending situation for the Caps didn't help. I mean, due respect to Craig Anderson, but I don't think he's your Stanley Cup playoff goalie. I don't think he's the guy you want in net, even though he didn't perform terribly. Yeah, I mean, it was hard to watch. I mean, unless you're a Bruins fan, and the Bruins absolutely dominated. Like they were really good. Bergeron and Marchand and Pastrnak and all them were obviously great. I mean, from their perspective, they did exactly what you want to do, and that was shut down the opposing rushes from the Caps and their high-end offense, and then stop Alex Ovechkin, and they did that for the most part. I think Mike Riley really played pretty well. From what I saw, at least, he played pretty well. I think that was a great acquisition, and I think I'm sure Bruce Cassidy is pretty happy with the production that he's gotten from him. Yeah, that's really all I saw. It wasn't a ton outside of the Caps got dominated for the most part, and they were just kind of they're just kind of given a happy hand.
Yeah, the two big questions, I guess we can pivot to the Capitals. The two biggest questions, I think, for this roster are how much do you pay Ovechkin, and what's the market for Evgeny Kuznetsov like? And that seems to be kind of the narrative going around here. Evolving Hockey has Ovi's contract projected at 3 years at 7.5, which sounds low, honestly, from what he'll possibly get. There was a rumor last year, I think, that he was asking for like 10, which I don't think happens now. But yeah, I mean, this is another team here that's just kind of like at the end of their rope. And I don't know. I mean, I really don't know what to do with this roster, honestly, because they don't really have a ton of like really good young talent, at least up on the team at the moment. And their veterans are old. And it seems like this team's just kind of going to be in that mediocre, like, we'll make the playoffs, we'll be really good in the regular season because we're just going to let Ovi just score a ton, which he didn't even do this year. And then we'll just kind of get into the playoffs and get beat by a better team. That it's like that. Them and the Penguins, man, they're like pretty much the same team at this point. So I don't know, like what would you guys do with the Caps roster?
I'd blow it up, I feel like. they have all those veterans, but they're all, like you said, nearing, I guess, the end of their careers, where they aren't elite forwards or defensemen, whoever it is anymore. They don't have any young talent. I just don't see what's the point of dragging it on another 2, 3 years before Ovechkin retires and you got nothing left. You're going to give up all your assets. I just think it's best to blow it up. You got OV's cup, and that's all the goal really was.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I feel like it's kind of the same situation with the Pens, except I think the Pens are a little bit better just because they have both Crosby and Malkin, and they even have Letang. Um, so I think they're in a little bit better of a situation to kind of keep the train moving. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of where the Caps are right now. They have to pay. I mean, they're inevitably going to pay Ovi a ton of money, and that's just going to put them in an even worse spot. As much as Ovi might have earned it, it's hard to see that contract working out with his decline in offensive production and absolute horrendous defense. Um, their prospect pool isn't great. I mean, I'm no expert on prospects, but the only one I can name from their pool is Connor McMichael. So that's really just a telling sign that they need to kind of fix it up. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess the blow it up train would be coming around the bend for them, which is tough to say because the Caps have been really good for a really long time, but it just feels kind of like the Nicholas Backstrom, Alex Ovechkin era is coming to a close.
Where are we at on Chara? Is he done? Is Chara just gonna ride off into the sunset?
I don't even know, man. I feel like he's
He's a free agent, so and like
I feel like
I can't see Capitals signing him again.
I feel like it would probably be best, but who knows? The Preds might fucking pick him up just because they're the Preds and they like their gritty old defensemen that can't do anything.
I'll probably end up in like Montreal. God, that'd be
Yeah,
funny,
that'd
eh?
be pretty funny. Edmondson and Chara in a D core.
Holy shit!
Oh my god, it would be comedy.
So let's just play a little hypothetical here. If Ovi hits the open market, what's the best fit for him at this point besides Washington? Like if the Caps are just like, yeah, we're just not going to re-sign you.
Retirement? Is that an option?
I guess. I,
I mean,
like,
I guess somewhere cool would be like the Oilers or Pittsburgh play with.
could you imagine?
That would be so
Could you
fun.
imagine him to Pittsburgh?
But you just have to shelter him so much.
Yeah, I mean, give him like an elite playmaking center and like holy shit, yeah, put him on a line with Connor McDavid. Like,
I think he should just go to NHL Russian retirement home in Florida.
Yeah. I mean,
Florida
Florida has a ton of money, so they have a ton of expiring contracts. Montreal would be an interesting place too, just because they need somebody who can score.
I'd say Colorado just because they recruit a ton of people.
Well, yeah, Colorado, Vegas, just all the typical. Toronto will get their name thrown out there at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I mean, obviously it won't happen. Like he's going to resign in Washington, but like it would be so much fun if he just didn't. Like if he was just like, yeah, no, I want to try winning another cup because like
the chaos
and like the thinking behind that would be like he's not going to break Gretzky's record at this point, right? Like we can agree with that. Like the goal record's kind of out of reach at this point.
I doubt it. Yeah.
Like so,
who knows? But yeah, I doubt it.
Like especially with his decline and like the lockouts he's had, like everything that he's kind of had like externally, which sucks for him because I think like if he had a normal career, he breaks it, but it's just unfortunate. But either way, like maybe he sits down this summer and is like, you know what, I'm not going to break this record. I want to go win another cup, and that probably doesn't happen in Washington. I think that's a really interesting conversation that won't happen, but maybe should. And like, man, if Alex Ovechkin was to hit the open market July 1st and just be like, you know what, I want to see who's out there for me, and do like a Daniel Alfredson kind of thing where he just kind of takes a 1-year deal somewhere or a 2-year deal or something and just chases that second ring. That would be really fascinating. It won't happen, but holy shit, that would be great. I guess we can move on to Colorado and St. Louis, which again we kind of touched upon last week, which is basically just Colorado just absolutely manhandled the Blues, and St. Louis was completely outmatched the whole time, and Nathan MacKinnon's awesome. That was essentially what we came up with last week. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Jeff, but that's basically where we were.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say. He said the Blues got dominated in pretty much every single aspect of the
everywhere.
the game.
Like, everything.
Yeah, I mean, literally everywhere.
Outplayed
like
everywhere.
yeah. No, but, I mean, there's not much else to say. No, Nathan MacKinnon is not better than Connor McDavid. Stop it. But Nathan MacKinnon is a really good hockey player and deserves to be treated as such. And I think that's about all I got.
I don't know if you guys remember.
So Cale Makar's really good.
Oh yeah, he's sick. But like after McKinnon's third year in the league, when he was just kind of like, almost just kind of like that Mitch Marner tier player, where he wasn't mediocre, but he was just a good first liner. And there was a lot of trade rumors going around saying like, hey, you know, maybe we just dump him, and you know we run this with like, we try it again. Like, imagine if they would have just given up. Holy shit. Like,
that would be crazy.
Because it was real like rumors about that. About like when they moved Stastny, that they should just move MacKinnon too. And like, wow. What a mistake that would have been, like an unreal. And it would have been Joe Sakic that did it too. Which like I couldn't imagine. But yeah, I mean the discussion that has to be had with Colorado, and this is going up on Twitter when they blew the shit out of Vegas in game 1. Like, if there was ever a team, and it won't happen because we're talking about hockey, but man, if there was ever a team to go 16-0, it's this year's Colorado Avalanche team.
100%.
Like, they're so fucking good.
They could do it.
It's incredible.
Right. If you think about it, Vegas is like totally out of it after that long series with Minnesota. And then they get to face one of the North Division teams, which is either Winnipeg or Montreal.
And then they play either probably Boston or Tampa in the Cup. Like, that's probably like the most likely time they lose is most likely against Tampa Bay at least once. And like they won't, like they'll probably lose one or two to Vegas. I don't think Vegas is getting swept. But like, holy shit, they look so good.
I can see them losing 4 games at most this playoff.
Yeah.
If they make it all the way.
Yeah. I think that's a fair number.
It's really incredible. Joe Sakic is an absolute boss at his job. He's so good.
Since analytic tracking began in 2007, 2008. Now, granted, it's a 56-game season. They're the only team in NHL history to be over 60% in expected goals for percentage. And they're at 60.7. So they're like almost a full like 2% better than the Sharks from 13-14, who are second. Like, and I get a lot of that had to do with the fact that they played like LA and San Jose and Anaheim, but they also had to play Vegas and Minnesota 10 times. Like, it's not like the entire division. Like, Minnesota was fucking good this year, and so was Vegas. Like, it's not like it was just a total cakewalk of a division, although the back half of it was awful. Like, and I mean, just look what they did to St. Louis in the first round. Look what they did in game 1 against Vegas. Like, it's incredible how deep this team is and just how dominant they are. Like, they just score. Like, games will be like, there's been so many times where the game's like 1-0 or 0-0 after the first, and then it's like 6-1 after the second period, and it's like, oh, like, what happened? It's incredible to watch the Avalanche, and if you haven't done it, for some reason this year, Like, watch an Avalanche game. It like, wow. Yeah. As for St. Louis, it's kind of similar to the whole the situation in Nashville. I think they're similar in kind of where they are as a franchise at this point. I think St. Louis should explore a Tarasenko trade. They won't, but I think they should. And yeah, I mean that's like St. Louis is kind of in a weird spot as a team, and they're going to be in that Central Division again, fighting for probably third. Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have anything else to add about the Blues going into the offseason?
I think they should just get rid of their older guys, especially Tarasenko. He's not even that old, but just know that he's not going to go back to his prime form. I just think moving for younger players and stuff would be the most, or I guess the best thing for them this offseason.
Yeah, I don't know. I try to reserve any good comments on the St. Louis Blues just because I don't like them very much. But yeah, they're in that weird spot where it's like you just want a cup, but you're not good enough to compete with the other teams that are in like cup contention. They're not in the same level as Vegas or Tampa or Carolina or Colorado or even Toronto, which is Toronto. But yeah, I just don't see them in that tier anymore. I mean, they used to be, but Bennington sucks. Their defense has gotten substantially worse. They lost Pietrangelo. I mean, who knows what they'll do with Vince Dunn. They just don't look like the same team that they did in 2019, even though 2019 went off to a horrible start. Like, we all knew that they could do better than that. Yeah, I don't know what you really do with that. It's going to be an interesting spot because I don't think they're bad enough to go into a rebuild. They're good enough to compete for a cup. It's kind of the same situation as the Penguins and the Capitals. I feel like there's like a recurring trend,
with
but
all
like
the teams that lost the first round.
yeah, like
it's kind of funny how if you just squeak into the playoffs and then get your ass beat by a better team in the first round of the playoffs, you have the same issue as everybody else.
yeah. It's weird how that works.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think they've got some good things going on. Like Jordan Kyrou, I like him a lot.
Yeah, he really broke out this season.
Yeah, I like Klim Kostin. I think he'll be pretty good. Maybe he's like a second liner, third liner, maybe even better. But I think there are some glaring flaws. I don't think their prospect pool is great. There's just some guys that kind of just float around out there. It's just been. I mean, the playoffs for most of them was mediocre. Granted,
yeah,
played against Colorado Avalanche. Yeah. But I mean, still, I don't see them making any massive changes if they play a team like in Carolina. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. I guess one of the teams that lost in the first round that didn't kind of hit a brick wall was the Minnesota Wild. I really loved the Minnesota Wild all season. I think they're a really fun team. They're kind of like unhateable at this point. Like they don't really have like any massive like huge like rivals that I guess like teams in like the Central and stuff. But like besides that, it's not like a team like St. Louis or whatever where there's actual like enough history. So there's kind of like the likable team of the NHL. And they push Vegas really hard. I've been kind of on the Vegas is slightly overrated train for a little bit. And I picked Minnesota to win the series, but I really like the direction the Minnesota Wild are going in. And this was just kind of, and I know it's another first round loss for the Wild, but like the building blocks are there. Kaprizov is unreal. Joel Eriksson Ek looks like a legitimate like first line center. Obviously they have all the prospects coming up. I really like the way the Wild are looking right now, and this first round loss feels different than the last couple, especially like when they lost to the Jets, where it felt like they were just kind of trying to sneak into the playoffs and hope for the best, like a team like St. Louis and Nashville have been doing. But this time feels a little bit different. It feels like they're kind of moving in the right direction. And this was another really fun series, but obviously they got body slammed in Game 7, which is really the only concerning thing I had from this series overall. But yeah, I mean, Minnesota. What do you guys think of Minnesota heading into next year?
I like Minnesota a lot. Kaprizov, like you said, is ridiculous. He's unreal. His edges are unbelievable. He thinks the game really well. He scores goals. He does it all. He looked kind of rough at the beginning of the Vegas series. I'm not sure why, but I feel like he kind of settled in. I They still have some problems over there in Minnesota. I mean, the Parisi and Suter contracts are obviously bad. Parisi was a healthy scratch for a little bit. That's obviously not good. Yeah, I mean, they've gotten the best out of their guys. I like Capo Kakinen and Talbot looked good. Kaprizov was already mentioned. Jared Spurgeon started the year off rough, but I think he kind of settled in. Umba looked better this year. He was all right. See, I'm trying to remember who else they have.
It's kind of one of those teams. It's just like
Yeah, but like, what's funny is like it's one of those teams with like kind of the no names, but like their names that you like Nick Bukestad. Like I know they have him, but I don't.
yeah.
He never really stood out to me, but like he was good enough to where he didn't stand out to me.
Yeah, Nico Sturm had a really good year. That was somebody
Yes,
that
Nico Sturm did have a good year.
kind of came
Forgot
out of
about him.
nowhere. Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah.
literally what Minnesota's just kind of been, is just like this team full of guys that you've probably never heard of that play really well, and they've kind of fit that identity really really well. And obviously Kaprizov has become a pretty well household name. And I expect him to be fairly aggressive this offseason. Whether that's with offer sheets or whatnot. They have some money to play with. They have a bunch of pending UFAs, and they have a nice core. And yeah, they have some issues. I still think they need at least one more top six forward, and maybe another defenseman. I mean, they could move Dumba, so they could get something back for that as well. But I really like the way Minnesota's built their roster over the last like year and a bit. And I mean, they got Marco Rossi coming up.
Yeah.
I
am
don't know why
so
I just
pissed
mind
that
blanked there.
Marco Rossi.
Marco Rossi, but yeah.
Oh man, dude, I'm so pissed that we didn't get to see Marco Rossi this year or
Yeah.
Matt Boldy. I mean, I know why Matt Boldy didn't play, but like, I mean, I know why both of them didn't play, but oh
Yeah.
man, what an unfortunate thing for Rossi. It's so good to see him back, though. I'm so
Yeah.
glad he's skating.
And that's
He's an elite player. He's so good.
somebody next year that might even fit into the roster like at some point. So they have a ton of potential. Again, in a weak Central, I think they're pretty well locked in as the second best team in that division. Behind like clearly behind Colorado, but I think they have a bit of a gap on everybody else. And I mean, we'll get more into off-season stuff when that becomes more clear. But as of right now, they've been my second in the Central, and they're getting younger, and they're finally kind of doing that right. So, good for them.
Sabres picked Jack Quinn over Marco Rossi.
So now we're gonna move to the North Division. I guess we'll start with
How fun.
with the Toronto Maple Leafs, who went into the season as a Cup favorite, more so than ever. Went into the playoffs as one of the Cup favorites, at least to get out, like a clear favorite to get out of the Canadian division. Went up 3-1 in the series, and then in a large part due to Carey Price becoming the best goalie in the world, blew a 3-1 series lead after coming back twice in Game 5 and 6. And then lost in Game 7 and got totally outplayed in Game 7. Yeah. I feel like we do this every year with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and every year we go into the playoffs. This was their most clear opportunity to make not only out of the first round, but to win the cup. Like they're not going to get, like, next year they're going to be in a division with Florida, Tampa Bay, and Boston, and they're going to have to beat at least two of those teams to get to the third round. Like I have no words. Credit to the Montreal Canadiens, because they fought back in this series, and especially in Game 7, they played phenomenal. Carey Price was great, pretty well all series, but holy shit, I don't know. I mean,
I'd like to point out how bad Marner was.
Oh God.
It seems like he has the IQ of Patrick Kane in the defensive zone, but just all over the ice. Like, he looked like he couldn't think anything hockey. It was some of the worst hockey I've seen a player play. Like, he looked so out of it.
Yeah, he looked awful. He was terrible. It was just tough to watch, man. They just had it. Like, they literally had it. And then
they didn't.
Toronto Maple Leafs themselves.
Yeah.
They had it made for them to get out of one round at least. Playing a team that wouldn't make the playoffs normally, like in a normal season, there's a good chance that they didn't make the playoffs.
Montreal was the 18th best team in the league, period, this season. Like, they weren't good.
No. And they had that one hot streak at the beginning after that.
Yeah, because they played Vancouver really 7 times in a row.
Exactly. And then they were like crap.
Yeah.
Like, they had no players that played like crazy good. Gallagher was really good from what I saw of him this year.
Gallagher was solid in this series too. He just didn't score until the final game.
But they had no one that was like crazy in the regular season.
No, I mean,
Toffoli
but
he wasn't like
a
superstar this year.
I honestly think this is worse than the Bruins game. I really do.
You can't.
Because at least the Bruins were a good team.
Is the worst. Yeah.
at least Boston was a good team. Like they won the cup that year, right? Like you lost to the best team in the league. This is it. Like,
they didn't win the cup that year.
The Bruins, like
they won
in 2013.
Finals,
oh yeah, that's right.
They won the cup 2 years before, so like they're still like a super.
Yeah, they lost to Chicago. That's right. That's my bad.
Yeah, but they're still really good.
Yeah,
your point stands.
I don't know.
It might be worse.
Yeah, I think it is. I really. It's to Montreal. I mean, obviously they're rivals with Boston too, but it's to Montreal. Like, it's just incredible. It's incredible how this team does this every year.
I don't get how you can be a Leafs fan. Like, at this point, like, how have you not given up your sanity?
It's so like
you have nothing left.
I think, and I'm not the biggest Steve Dangle fan out there, but I respect what he does, and he's super entertaining. And we need more.
Did you see the Carolina tweet?
Yeah.
We're here for you at Steve Dangle.
Like, I mean, first of all, Steve Dangle's a great personality for the NHL, and getting more loud guys on TV like that is actually probably better. I mean, Stephen A. Smith he's talking about hockey a lot, and he's entertaining. Steve Dangle's super entertaining. But just watching his Leafs fan review for Game 7, and just like he said a couple really relevant things in that video. Mainly the fact that a lot of the players on the Leafs this year grew up Leafs fans. Guys like Spezza, Thornton, Simmons, Tavares, obviously, although he didn't really play. There's probably more. I'm just but there's a lot of Toronto-born players on the team, and he pointed out that if they leave this summer, and they go somewhere else, and they win, it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same as winning in Toronto because that's what you grew up wanting, and that's why you came to the Leafs. And they just couldn't get it done again. I know a lot of people looked at this team, and obviously we can dissect the moves that Dubas made, and we can talk about how Nick Foligno was an overpayment. He really didn't do much this series, although he was hurt. We can talk about how Wayne Simmons was a bad pickup, and they should have went after somebody like Corey Perry, who had a great round one. But it's just, I don't know. I mean, I think I think the best tweet I saw was that this core in Toronto might win a cup, but they're not the dynasty that we thought they were going to be, and they're not going to be Colorado. They're not going to be Tampa.
Could be a dynasty.
I don't see it.
I don't know. Dubas has been doing everything in his power to please the Leafs media and do well and what's right for the team, and the team just doesn't.
It still didn't work.
They don't show it up for him. Like, he's out there trying to build like a super team, and they can't do it.
I get that they lost Tavares,
but that isn't
and that's tough. But they won 3 games after he was hurt. Like they won 3 games.
And he's not even their best center. Like,
yeah, it's not like it
he's
would be
probably
different.
their 4th best forward.
It would be different if he gets hurt in game 1 and they get swept.
Yeah,
but they didn't. They were up 3-1.
They won 3 games after. That it shouldn't be an excuse.
And then,
it probably will be.
Like, I get Muzzin wasn't there for game 7, but Muzzin got hurt in game 6, and then you scored 2 goals and tied the game.
Yeah. But you're already up 3-1 while he was there.
Like, you still could have won the fucking series when you came back. And you have to feel like it's not just that they lost. It's that they were down 3-0 in game 5 and then came back and tied it.
Yeah.
And then lost. And then they came back in game 6. Down. Like, when TJ Brody scored that goal, like, the players were like jumping on him like they won the series. Like, they felt like they had it. And then they came on overtime and they dominated. Like, they killed Montreal.
And then
they made one play. And like, you could tell, like, on the bench, they knew they lost the series after game 6. Everybody on that bench knew it was over. And the Canadians knew it was over. That's a problem, though. Like, and they came out and laid an egg in game 7. Like they've done the last 3 seasons.
I just don't get that, like, from players' perspective. Just, I don't know.
And I mean, credit to the Canadians. Like, Carey Price, like I said, was great. Joel Armia had a fantastic series in round 1. But I don't know. I don't know. Man, they're gonna be such a fascinating team this summer.
I really think Marner's gonna go.
I think you have to.
And
that was another thing that Steve pointed out in his video was that when they signed Marner, they signed him under the assumption that the cap was going to go up every year, so that every single season, like onward, he'd eat up less of the cap, and that's just not the case anymore. And he doesn't. He's not the same player without Matthews. I don't think he's going to be a Leaf next season, and they have to do something. Like they can't just bring this team
Dubas will
back.
be pressured to do something for sure.
But then again, they have to play Tampa, Boston, and Florida next year. They're gonna have to beat 2 of those teams in the playoffs.
I can see it, but it's gonna be tough.
God,
I don't even know where to start for them.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode on the Leafs, man. The final series in this year's playoffs was the Oilers and Jets. This was a really fun series. It was a sweep, but it felt like it was a lot longer than that because
it felt like it was 7 games.
They played like 6 games worth of overtime. I still like the best picture from these playoffs is is after Nick Ehlers scored the goal. It's him celebrating in front of the Bud Light Seltzer guy, like triple overtime. Just I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it's like they had, for some reason, Winnipeg had like this guy, this like guy in a massive Bud Light Seltzer costume walking around the stadium. in like the middle of triple overtime. Like he's just there for like the 4-hour game alone, and it's just this picture of Ehlers just celebrating, just staring at him, and he's just got his hands at like the fucking guy in the suit says his hands. It's so funny. But yeah, I mean the Oilers.
Connor
I mean,
Hellebuck's stole that series.
yeah.
The Oilers outplayed them, I feel like.
Yeah, they did. I think they outplayed them in all 4 games, actually, according to
Yeah.
Money Puck. Or not, yeah, Money Puck. But yeah, I mean, every game goes to overtime. Like, anything can happen. And, yeah, I mean, Connor Hellebuck was Connor Hellebuck. It's going to be fun. If Price keeps playing the way he is, like, that second-round series is going to be really fun.
Yeah, should be.
But McDavid and Draisaitl, like, I feel like it's becoming similar to what's going on in Toronto. This team just can't win, and it obviously it's not on, like, people who blame McDavid for that. Like, come on. But I don't know. I mean, this is another team that just it's going to be such a fascinating offseason for Edmonton. Because they have 3 years left of McDavid, I think.
More than that.
Is it? It's probably more than that. Yeah, it's more than
He's
that.
on an 8-year deal.
Yeah, it's more than that.
So it's like 6 years.
2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's 4 more seasons. Yeah, 5 more seasons.
Okay.
And Draisaitl's got 4.
They're both on like
Yeah.
their combined is only like what, 20 million?
Pretty close. Yeah. Yeah, 12 and
21.
8.5. So, yeah.
Yeah. You should be cup contenders with the 2 best offensive players in the league.
But like
2
at
top
least
5 centers.
At least for the Oilers, they're going to a bad division next year.
Yeah.
Where like
There's Vegas.
Vegas was Vegas the
That's
only
it.
team to make the playoffs from that division? They were. Vegas was the only team from the Pacific to make the playoffs.
Other than the Oilers.
Yeah, other than Edmonton, obviously.
Yeah.
That's wild. Holy
Like
shit.
there's a chance Vancouver could finish 3rd in that division next year.
Oh god, yeah.
That's how bad it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think LA takes a step forward, but that's a whole nother argument.
They could.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, Edmonton, same. It's the same thing. Like I don't really know I mean, they at least they have like a bunch of expiring contracts. Like they're gonna be able to kind of maneuver around that. They have to be aggressive this summer, though, right? Like you can't just run this back. I don't know. All these Canadian teams. And the funniest part is that like the 2 teams that won probably like are the ones who are also going to take like terrible lessons away from this. Because like Montreal's going to look at their team and be like, yeah, we're fine. And Winnipeg's going to look at their defense and be like, holy shit, we just shut down Connor McDavid for 4 games.
And we might make the 3rd round.
Like neither of those teams are going to address their actual needs.
Nope.
It's just hilarious. But yeah, so that's the bracket. So I guess quickly, Stanley Cup picks. Are we? I'm sticking with Colorado.
Colorado.
I'm riding Colorado out 16-0.
I had Toronto at the beginning of the year, but
Yeah,
then I
but-
switched mid-season to Colorado just
Nice.
because I realized Toronto's a bunch of frauds.
Yeah, so Colorado's still the consensus here. So yeah, so that's all we got for you guys this week. Next week, I don't know what we're gonna do. We'll figure it out. It'll be something. We'll be here.
Always figure it out.
Yeah, we just kind of
Both the punches, you know?
Something
exactly.
happened.
Something will happen. Yeah,
Something.
It's hockey.
You'll get something out.
we'll be here. We'll talk about like I don't know. We'll do a whole episode of the Leafs next week.
You should.
We should.
Honestly.
I'll talk to Steve, see if I can get Steve Dangle on. Talk to him for an hour. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. This is episode 16 now. Just crazy. That's 4 months. Holy shit.
I thought last week was 16.
No, last
Was it
week was 15.
15?
Last week was 15. Yeah, I screwed it up. Yeah, 16 this week. That's 4 months. I can't believe we're doing this for 4 months. Yeah, thank you guys again for all the support. We're growing. I think we're up to 123 followers on Instagram now, which is great. That's the best place to get like updates and stuff. On the episode, we
You can find
post.
excellent memes, too.
Yeah,
Random memes about me.
we're now a meme
Apparently.
account. But I don't know. We're gonna try and post more on there, like just quotes and stuff from the episodes too. But that's just kind of mainly a place to get updates on the podcast, and obviously the YouTube channel, which we might do something with at some point. I don't know. But we do post the episodes on there as well. So yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of other things that we should plug. I guess you guys should just plug like your normal nonsense. And
Okay, Jeff, go ahead.
there you go.
Yeah, because it takes me the longest.
Well, it's been like 3 weeks since you've had to do this. So
We all want to hear it.
Yeah. So yeah, you guys can find me on Instagram at NHL_analysis_. Right. You can find my stuff through the link in my bio. I got a Substack where I have stuff on there. I wrote about Louis Eriksson, if you love him, recently. And I write for Last Word on Sports. I'm a little bit less active on there. I got to start writing back there, else I'll probably get in trouble. And then I write for the Hockey Writers and on the Forecheck, so you guys can check me out over there. And my Twitter's at JJMeadow4 if you want to follow me. That's all I got.
You can find me at Puck Analytics on Instagram and Twitter.
do you even use your Twitter anymore?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
whenever I feel like leaving a
Get the
snarky
occasional
comment.
like from Jack.
Yeah.
I'm
Or
like
when I
so
feel
I'm
like
so
leaving a
consistent
snarky comment.
on Twitter. I'll like just go on a huge rampage about something and then just not use it for like a week.
Yeah. I do the same thing.
I'm in group chats, so I kind of have to be
no,
active.
I'm not. I didn't get invited to any of those either.
Oof.
It's okay. You guys can find me at NBA Hockey on Instagram. Nothing but Iron 1 on Twitter. Followed by the Colorado Avalanche, soon to be 16-0 Stanley Cup champions. So
There it is.
that's cool. We're best friends. Ever since they followed me, they've just been on a rampage in the NHL. That's what I point
Hopefully
that
they lose tomorrow then.
out. That's what I point that out. I feel like I was the catalyst to their success.
Okay.
But that's okay. I mean, yeah, Joe Sakic looks at my tweets now.
I'm sure he does.
Followed the George model.
Yeah.
George Bottle.
But yeah, so that's all we got for you guys this week. Again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next Wednesday.